The India-EU Free Trade Agreement signed on January 27, 2026, after nearly 2 decades of negotiations, is being called the mother of all deals because it reshapes trade between two of the world's largest economies and democracies, covering about 2 billion people, eliminating tariffs on over 90% of goods. Indian textiles, pharma, IT services and agricultural products stand to gain easier access to the EU market. This could significantly expand India's export base, create jobs in sectors where India is already competitive, and it promises cheaper imports for Indian consumers, expanded export opportunities for Indian businesses, and also strategic cooperation and climate technology and the like. Let's take a look at this program's montage. So as I was saying, the pact promises to reshape trade flows. It's also going to slash tariffs on over 90% of EU goods and open new doors for Indian exporters in textiles, pharmaceuticals, IT and agriculture. And for India, this agreement is both a golden opportunity. It's also a challenge because it's balancing consumer gains and climate cooperation with tougher competition. Let's look at this report.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen jointly announced the conclusion of the landmark India-European Union Free Trade Agreement on Tuesday at the 16th EU-India Summit in New Delhi. Calling it a historic agreement, PM Modi said that it will make access to European markets easier for our farmers and small industries. PM Modi emphasized that this FTA is not just a trade agreement, but a new blueprint for shared prosperity.
आज भारत ने अपने इतिहास का अब तक का सबसे बड़ा फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट संपन्न किया है। यह एक ऐतिहासिक समझौता हमारे किसानों, हमारे छोटे उद्योगों, इसकी यूरोपियन मार्केट तक पहुंच आसान बनाएगा, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में नए अवसर पैदा करेगा और हमारे सर्विसेज सेक्टर के बीच सहयोग को और प्रबल करेगा। यह सिर्फ ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट नहीं है, यह साझा समृद्धि का नया ब्लूप्रिंट है।
Prime Minister Modi stressed that India's cooperation with the European Union could help bring stability to a global order facing turmoil.
आज ग्लोबल ऑर्डर में बड़ी उथल-पुथल है। ऐसे में भारत और यूरोपियन यूनियन की साझेदारी अंतर्राष्ट्रीय सिस्टम में स्थिरता को मजबूती देगी।
EU Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen labelled it the mother of all deals, forming a free trade zone for 2 billion people with tariff reductions on over 90% of EU goods to India, saving billions annually.
We delivered the mother of all deals. We are creating a market of 2 billion people, and this is the tale of two giants, the world's second and fourth largest economies, two giants who choose partnership in a true win-win fashion. It will cut up to 4 billion euros in annual tariffs for exporters of all sizes, and it will create good jobs for millions of workers here in India and in Europe.
EU Council Chief Antonio Costa termed it the largest FTA globally, a geopolitical stabilizer boosting jobs, security, defense and maritime cooperation amid world challenges.
Today, we are taking our partnership to the next level. As the two largest democracies in the world, we are working hand in hand to deliver concrete benefits for our citizens and to shape a resilient global order that underpins peace and stability, economic growth, and sustainable development.
At the 16th India-US Summit, apart from the India-UA FTA, both sides adopted towards 2030 India-EU Joint Comprehensive Strategic Agenda, signed MOU on Comprehensive Framework on Cooperation on Mobility, and also concluded Security and Defence Partnership. The European Union is India's one of the largest trading partners, with a combined market estimated at over 24 trillion US dollars, bringing unparalleled opportunities for the 2 billion people of India and the EU. India's bilateral trade in goods with the European Union stood at 136.54 billion US dollars in 2024-25, while exports with the EU amounted to 75.85 billion US dollars and imports reached 60.68 billion US dollars. India-EU trade in services reached 83.10 billion US dollars in 2024. India and EU are the fourth and second largest economies, comprising 25% of global GDP and account for one-third of global trade. Earlier, Prime Minister Modi held delegation-level talks with EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen and the President of the European Council, Antonio Costa, at Hyderabad House in Delhi. Leaders reviewed the full spectrum of India-EU ties and discussed ways to further accelerate the deepening of the India-EU partnership. The leaders reiterated that the India-EU partnership is forged in mutual objective of peace and prosperity for people of both the regions and for global good. Bureau Report, DD India.
And we are joined by Ambassador Rajiv Kumar Bhatia, former senior diplomat, and Professor Rakesh Mohan Joshi, the Vice Chancellor of the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, to put this historic deal into context. Ambassador Bhatia, you know, how long will it take for this FTA to increase the market size on both sides and, you know, also to develop that market? Because without that, I mean, the benefits really can't be accrued.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Greetings from Gateway House. I'm really very happy that you've asked that very frank, straightforward question. Officials have already announced that it will take about a year to complete the process of clearing the FTA pact on the European side, and therefore the enforcement will take that much time. But that does not reduce at all in any fashion the global significance of this pact. There are 2 or 3 very quick facts that we need to remember. One is that the fact that India has signed after very carefully concluding and negotiating this deal shows that Indian economy has matured. It has reached that level of maturity where it is willing to accept a greater competition from European products into its own market. And secondly, this whole business of the ability to export more of what we have been doing in terms of labor-intensive products shows that its effects will be quite quick once the pact comes into operation. So while being realistic, we should be very optimistic that this is a positive development for India's economy and indeed for India's global relationships.
Professor Joshi, what sectors of the Indian economy would need to take this as an opportunity or grab this opportunity to, you know, sort of increase exports?
No, I think it's a great opportunity. It is unprecedented that India has signed any deal with a developed economy, not only developed economy, but group of economies, 27 countries. You know, it's highly commendable that we started this negotiation in 2007. By 2013, we thought that, you know, we are not moving onward and, you know, the negotiations were stalled. And we started it again in 2022. Now, if you see that 18 years have taken, intense negotiation, meticulous work, negotiating strategies, both for Indian negotiators and EU negotiators. Having, you know, finalized this deal is no easy task, because if you look into, you know, it's 27 countries. Now, differences within the countries on various issues were there, and therefore the whole thing, you know, took so long. And if you see that, you know, today, that Ursula von der Leyen, the president, what she said is that we delivered mother of all deals. And it is mother
Yes.
of all deals that probably the European Union also signed with such a large country, a country with, 1.48 billion people and total, accounting for 2 billion people, of the population and 1/4 of the world economy, integrating them to the biggest success zone. Now, another thing, if you see into this deal is, giving a very great symbolic, clues to the other, countries in the world,
Okay.
who have imposed 50% duty on India, and therefore, we were facing a lot of challenges, especially on our labor-intensive products in textiles, in ready-made garments, in leather. And you see, more importantly, it is strategically also, what Ursula von der
Yes.
Leyen has said is that if India succeeds, the world is more stable, prosperous, and secure. They have recognized the significance of India. They have recognized the stability of India. They have recognized the economic.
Yes, Professor
strength.
Joshi, we'll break up the deal a little bit and talk more about that. I can see our correspondent Jessica Taneja is standing by. She has been following this development closely. She was also at the press conference. Jessica, it's taken 20 years to negotiate this deal. In the recent past, what led to the quickening of pace or the momentum building or accelerating to finally reach a conclusion?
Well, there are various factors that contributed to that, not just the current geo-economic turmoil, but also the need for India and the EU to energize their trade relations and also look at an upward trajectory in the coming future. You see, the EU has also made it a point that it wants to now enhance not just trade ties, but also security ties with India. And that sort of gives us a sense on how serious and important the relationship has now become for the European Union, which wasn't the case many years ago. In 2007, when the first set of negotiations or the first talks was started, it wasn't really an intention to finish it anytime sooner, because there were a lot of issues to be ironed out, from automobiles to agriculture to dairy. There was no common understanding that both had arrived at. But now in 2026, there are a lot of factors that are sort of bring the two together on the table, and certainly concluding negotiations which have been stalled for many, many years is a completely different pivot from the European Union, a change in a certain attitude when it comes to relations with India, and also looking at it as a very important trade partner, not just because it's the fastest growing economy poised to take over many other countries right now and to become the third largest economy in the world, but at a time when you have tariff wars, you have countries seeking different kind of alliances. India is independently looking into its own autonomy and its autonomic sort of attributes and aspects of it, which countries it would like to trade with and continue, especially if there is a proper reliability factor. And with the European Union in the recent past, it has been, although with the European Union importing about $6.2 trillion worth of goods, it is important, and it is an important market for India to now access. It doesn't completely offset from all sorts of other different troubles that India has been facing right now when it comes to trade, but it certainly is a big market to access and promises much more in the future. Now, of course, the deal would completely be sealed once it's signed, so those procedural delays, as is being expected at the European Parliament and the European Council, also show intent that they could be ironed out soon. And the EU says with Mercosur trade deal being finalized, India was the next big focus.
Indeed. So we see that the European Union is about a $20 trillion economy, Ambassador Bhatia, and of course India getting access to that market is a great opportunity. But we see that China, seems to have excess capacity in the global supply chains. So to what extent is the second largest economy of the world, collectively I'm talking about the EU, and the fourth largest economy, India, getting together going to help negate that?
I think you're bringing now a very relevant point here. I think we have to see it in perspective. We should not think that India EU FTA has to be seen in isolation. It has to be seen in the context of the global competition. Yes, China is very much ahead in terms of manufacturing capabilities, and we are seeing the impact of this all around the world, including in Europe. But the point is that Europe itself has been fairly concerned about China's growing footprint in some of its own backyard, particularly in Eastern Europe and Central Europe. So in a way, this pact can be seen as an attempt by Europe to bring some balance in terms of external actors playing a role in the European economy. And let us be very clear, I think, this European pivot that we are seeing, symbolized by this FTA, is being backed by major European countries that are taking greater interest in India. You remember UK Prime Minister was here recently.
Yes.
In this very month, the German Chancellor was here, and in the next month, the French President is coming. So EU's initiative is fully backed by the key players within EU and outside EU. So in a way, I can say that this is very important to remember, that this is EU's balancing act that we are seeing as well.
Indeed. Professor Rakesh Mohan Joshi, so I mean, India has now tie-ups with Britain, which is outside the EU, but one of the large economies of Europe. And then we have also, I mean, within the EU, we have, of course, France, Germany, Italy, and the like. So what do you see now in terms of how this FTA is going to help us improve export competitiveness, but also in sectors where India has always been strong, pharmaceuticals, textiles, IT? How do we, sort of take a stride forward?
No, it's very important because you see that, sectors like textile, which are extremely important to us because they are the labor intensive sector. And our major export has been to United States of America, maybe 18-19% of our total export. Textiles and, ready-made garment is a key thing wherein, our import duty on these products in US has gone to higher than 50%. This market, by, reducing the duty to zero in the European Union market, is going to provide India a level playing field against the countries like Bangladesh. Bangladesh has zero duty there because of the GSP, Generalized System of Preference. European Union is granting Bangladesh zero duty under the GSP, but India, now as the GSP has been withdrawn from 1st of January 2026, so duty is increased on our textile product, maybe somewhere between 12% or so. So once it is 0%, so it will give an alternative opportunity to us and make our product competitive to the competitors in those markets. More importantly, it will help us in product diversification. When a market at America becomes less competitive, it is giving us an alternative market of the European Union. European Union, a key characteristic of the market, it is a high value market. So the high value market is you get a better price. If you get a better price, you have got a lot of leeway to spend on research and development and increasing quality of the product. So I am very sure that it will help us in increasing our textile, ready-made garment, leather into the European market. And as you are aware that most fashion brands emanate from European Union, and like Bangladesh has been a big supplier for that. So it will provide a level playing field for our labor intensive sector, and it will help us. So this is for the merchandise. And other than that, the services liberalization has been a key factor which has gone into this. The entire this FTA, it is going to make the future ready mobility framework for the Indian professionals, the professionals, the IT. So it's extremely important.
Let me bring in Jessica on that point. Jessica, so in what way is the FTA positioned, or at least at the press conference, did they take questions on, how things are going to be improved job creation, for instance, and also the mobility of labor between India and the EU?
Well, that is an important aspect of You know, the meetings and discussions that have been taking place between India and the EU delegations, and certainly a big focus for the two, because if you see, more than 20% of the blue card holders are, pardon me, Indians, and that certainly goes on to show the kind of trust EU has had, especially on the Indian tech talent and otherwise high-skilled labor. And given that in mind and the synergies that now both can foresee, they want to continue to enable movement of these skilled workers, students as well. You've seen an uptick in terms of the number of students now going to study in Europe because of the kind of benefits that this pact, and previously as well with the Erasmus Mundus scholarship, just one aspect of it, the biggest recipients have been Indians because of the sheer talent and the STEM education that has been benefiting the Indian education sector. And given that in mind, this mobility pact would also ensure that special workers would also be given visa and mobility within the Eurozone, which is then 27 nations. And that certainly goes on to show that there are a lot of things in terms of visas that both countries, India and the European Union really need to work on. But the intent and this particular pact goes on to show that this is a serious task and both are at it.
Ambassador Bhatia, how does this pact reshape India's relations with Western economies in general? And also, this comes at the dawn of the AI era, and India has certain advantages here as well with India's, let's say, digital public infrastructure becoming a global story.
On both the aspects, I think one has to speak directly. I think when we say Western economy, obviously that very much includes
the US,
North America, Canada, and US.
Right.
As far as Canada is concerned, it seems to be following a line close to the European situation, and I think Canadians are equally keen to start negotiations for a new FTA, for an FTA with India. So that is a separate issue. The critical question is as to what is the signal that is being sent through this FTA to Washington. I think scholars are somewhat divided on this, but there is no doubt that the US government will look at this development carefully and critically. Whether this will encourage them to go ahead with the agreement, trade agreement with India or not, that is still a question, the answer for which lies in the womb of the future. But I think it's very important.
A final word from you, Professor Joshi. I mean, when we talk about a free trade agreement, we have to also talk about investment, right? And without the investment treaty, at least solid investments coming in, the boost is not available for this kind of an agreement. So what do you think about investments and a separate investment treaty?
No, I think it's extremely important, but please try to understand that the investment comes when the countries have faith in each other. And I am very sure that, as the Prime Minister has already talked about, that, Saja Samriddhi ka naya blueprint. So it's a blueprint for the joint prosperity. And certainly when, markets are being opened, the investment from EU and India are going to be very, very complementary investment. We are likely to have a lot of, the cutting edge technology from them, wherein EU is likely to have a lot of professionals of all sort across all categories, and therefore the investment competitiveness in European Union and India will be boosted, and it is going to be a win-win deal both for EU and India.
We'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Professor Rakesh Mohan Joshi, Ambassador Rajiv Bhatia, and Jessica Taneja. Thank you for joining us and breaking this India-EU FTA, which has been signed today, breaking it down for us. Well, this FTA is both an opportunity and a test. It promises growth, cheaper goods, and stronger global partnerships. And it is an opportunity for India's domestic manufacturing to scale global heights. Not that it hasn't, but here's another chance. And this deal could accelerate India's path towards becoming a top 3 economy of the world, and importantly, also increase jobs and per capita income, which is what everyone is looking for. Thanks very much for watching. Namaskar.